How could you live in luxury off my son's fortune? You ungrateful daughter-in-law? Get out. My mother-in-law's words cut through the tension, sharp as a knife. You're nothing but a burden. Just seeing you here irritates me, she spat. I froze, caught off guard by her sudden venom, especially in the middle of an argument with my husband. What's going on, mother? Why are you saying this now? I asked, bewildered. You really think I don't know anything? She hissed. Nathan's told me everything. I know exactly what you're after, his money, and you've been racking up debts behind his back. He doesn't need a wife who's just here to drain him dry. Leave, now. The words hit me like a slap in the face. I had endured her constant bullying, hoping it would somehow help save my marriage, but now, hearing that my own husband had betrayed me with his words, I felt utterly betrayed. There was no reason left to support either of them. They didn't even know the meaning of gratitude. Fine, I replied, my voice cold and emotionless. I'll leave. It was painful, but I knew it was the only choice left. My name is Esther, I'm 29, and I work remotely. I've always been fragile, and my mother, who raised me alone, has been worried about me for as long as I can remember. She's 65 now, and still, she's my rock. You're not strong, Esther, and that means you'll have to stand on your own one day, she'd often say. I can't protect you forever, you need to learn how to survive. I understand, Mom, I would reassure her. I'll do my best. I had spent most of my life relying on her. After dropping out of high school due to health issues, I began teaching myself and eventually started working remotely. The flexibility suited me, and I was able to take things at my own pace. At first, I barely made enough to get by, just around $300 a month, but over time, my income grew. People might have thought of me as a recluse after high school, but I believed in the path I was forging. A few years later, my earnings had far exceeded the average for someone my age. I didn't mind the judgment anymore. When my work stabilized, my mom finally breathed a sigh of relief, her pride in me shining through. I'm so proud of you, Esther. I can finally relax knowing you're doing well, she said with a warm smile. At that point, my mother was still working in a supermarket deli, but the job was taking a toll on her health. One day, I couldn't bear it any longer. Mom, how much longer are you going to keep working? We can manage on my income now, so why not quit and enjoy life? I suggested. She was taken aback but clearly touched by my concern. I never imagined that you, so fragile, would be the one to support me, she said, her voice quivering with emotion. Thank you. Eventually, she took my advice and quit her job. She started to embrace a leisurely lifestyle, traveling with friends and enjoying her days without the stress of work. She even helped me with some of my tasks, but mostly, she was finally able to enjoy a peaceful retirement. She regained her strength, and we spent every evening together, having dinner and sharing stories of our days. I met a friend for lunch today. She told me one evening, her daughter just got married, and now she's excited about her first grandchild. Esther, you've been so busy with work. Do you think you'll ever find time for a relationship? I hope you meet someone wonderful. I smiled, though a twinge of discomfort crept in. Marriage, huh? I've never really thought about it, I admitted, but I suppose it's something to consider, right? I nodded thoughtfully, reflecting on her words. To be honest, marriage had never been a priority for me. I had always struggled with my health, often in and out of the hospital as a child. I dropped out of high school and didn't have many friends, let alone any romantic relationships. But maybe, just maybe, marriage and a family would be worth considering, if the right person came along. One day, I took a rare morning off and went to the mall. A jewelry store caught my eye, and a salesperson approached me. Are you looking for a gift? He asked with a friendly smile. I'd be happy to help. Yes, please, I replied. I'm looking for a necklace for my mother's birthday. Any recommendations? That was the first time I met Nathan, who would later become my husband. A gift for your mother? That's wonderful, he said, his voice warm and professional. Do you have a budget, or should I just show you some of our best options? I don't have a set budget, I said. I'll buy whatever feels right. Please, show me what you think is best. We spent some time browsing together, and the conversation flowed easily between us. By the time we were done, we had exchanged contact information. It was unusual for a customer and a salesperson to connect like that, but something about our interaction felt effortless. I ended up buying a beautiful, expensive necklace for my mother, but the real treasure that day was meeting Nathan. We kept in touch, and despite our busy schedules, we found time to date. Before long, we were discussing marriage. My mother seemed to sense that something had shifted inside me. Mom, I've been thinking about getting married, I said one evening, my voice quiet but sure. Her eyes lit up instantly. Oh, I knew something was different about you lately. So you have a boyfriend? I'm so happy for you. I'd love to meet him. At nearly 30, the idea of marriage felt surreal, something I hadn't even imagined until recently. But my mother's excitement mirrored my own. When I introduced her to Nathan, we learned that he, too, had been raised by a single mother. "I promise I'll make Esther happy," Nathan said to my mom with sincerity. "Please, allow me to marry her." My mother's face softened with emotion. "Of course, Nathan, I can see how much you care for her." Though our courtship had been brief, it felt like fate. My mother understood that well, sharing in my happiness. Not long after, I visited Nathan's family, unaware of how much this step would change everything. Nathan still lived with his mother in a quiet, unassuming neighborhood. When I first arrived, his mother looked me over with a calculating gaze. "So, you're the one Nathan wants to marry?" she asked coldly. I expected someone a bit more impressive. "You're rather plain, aren't you?" Nathan, clearly embarrassed, immediately intervened. "Mom, that's not fair. This is the first time you're meeting Esther. Please be polite." My first impression of her was not a good one. Her icy demeanor, coupled with the way she looked at me with a strange, almost mocking smile, made me feel deeply uncomfortable. Nathan tried to defend me, but there was an underlying tension in his voice, as if he didn't want to upset his mother. "Nice to meet you, I'm Esther," I said, trying to remain polite and calm. "I've been dating Nathan, and we're thinking about marriage." "Oh, I already know everything about you," she interrupted, her tone sharp. "Your name, your age, your job, I even know you come from a single mother family." Her sarcasm stung. It was clear that she wasn't just cold, but openly disdainful. Then she added, "I don't have any objections to the marriage, but there's something important you should know. Nathan and I are going to live together after you two marry. We plan to buy a new apartment, and we want all three of us to live there. If you can't accept that, then maybe you shouldn't marry Nathan." I was blindsided. I hadn't known anything about this arrangement. It felt like Nathan and his mother had already decided the terms, and now I was being expected to agree. She handed me a brochure for a luxurious 4-bedroom condo. "This is the place we're considering," Nathan said, smiling as if everything was perfectly normal. "It's a beautiful apartment. The three of us will live there together. I can't imagine living without Mom. She's been through a lot, and I worry about her. So, if you marry me, you'll have to accept living with her. I hope that's okay with you." A knot formed in my stomach as I took in his words. Something about Nathan's expression seemed off, and I felt an unsettling unease, but I was too stunned to process it fully at that moment. Afterward, Nathan returned to being his usual kind self, and I found myself believing his words. Looking back, though, I realize now just how much I had missed in that moment. I should have asked for more time to think, but when I returned home and saw how overjoyed my mother was about my engagement, I couldn't bring myself to delay the conversation any longer, and so, Nathan and his mother's plan for my married life began to unfold. The new high-rise condo was close to my mother's house, which offered some comfort. At least, if any problems arose, I could visit her quickly, and she could come to me, but I soon realized I wasn't living the life I'd imagined. As soon as we moved in, my mother-in-law made her expectations clear. "Esther, you understand, don't you? You'll be in charge of all the housework, cleaning, laundry, cooking meals perfectly. I'm counting on you," she said firmly. I had expected to contribute to the household chores, but what followed was a gradual, uncomfortable shift. My mother-in-law began to monitor my every move. I wasn't allowed to contact my mother anymore, and she was forbidden from visiting our home. But the real shock came when I discovered I was expected to bear all the household expenses. "You do realize who you should thank for living in this luxurious apartment, don't you?" my mother-in-law said one day. "Never forget what we've done for you." "What did you just say?" I asked, completely taken aback. My mother-in-law seemed to have no idea that I was the one funding the household. She assumed her son was the provider. "You might be happy with your little remote job, but to us, it's worthless. What good is that tiny salary?" she sneered. I was stunned. How could she be so oblivious to the reality of our situation? I considered showing her the household accounts, but decided it was best to speak to Nathan first. "Why doesn't your mom realize that I'm supporting us?" I asked him, frustration rising. "She criticizes me constantly, saying I'm living off her, and she belittles my earnings. What's going on?" Nathan just laughed dismissively. "Are you bothered by that? It doesn't matter what Mom thinks. Actually, part of the credit for this condo goes to me, so it's natural for her to think that way." I was speechless. Since we'd gotten married, Nathan hadn't contributed a single penny. I paid for everything, the furniture, the appliances, the bills, but instead of backing me up, he brushed aside my concerns as though they were meaningless. Then, one day, Nathan came home with a grin plastered on his face. "I bought a luxury car for the condo," he said proudly. "It's on loan, but it's better than driving a compact car, don't you think?" I was floored. Since moving into the condo, Nathan had started buying expensive suits, luxury shoes, high-end watches, and now, a new car, all without consulting me. Don't you think this is a bit much? I asked, trying to stay calm. Are you sure you can handle the payments? I can't take on any more expenses. Shut up, Nathan snapped. What do you think you're doing? Who do you think you are? Don't forget who you should be grateful to for getting married. If I hadn't come along, you'd still be at your mom's place doing remote work. I was floored. How could he be so selfish and ungrateful? I couldn't hold back anymore. Stop it. Who should be grateful here? You're making huge purchases without any discussion. This is insane. Enough is enough. What? He shouted, his face reddening with anger. Don't talk back to me. Don't mess with me. Before things could escalate further, my mother-in-law stormed in. What's going on here, Esther? You've got such a bad attitude, she scolded. I've heard enough. You've been wasting my son's money and living beyond your means. Get out. You're a burden. I was stunned by her accusations. What are you talking about? I protested, feeling like I was in some nightmare. I know exactly what's going on. I've heard everything from Nathan. You're out of control, getting into debt and wasting his money. We don't need a financial parasite like you. Leave, she screamed. I had tried to endure their constant harassment for the sake of my marriage, but Nathan's betrayal was the last straw. In truth, I wasn't living lavishly, nor was I in debt. It was Nathan and his mother who were wasting money, acting entitled, and being ungrateful. Nathan laughed alongside his mother. So, what's it going to be? Apologize and beg me to stay, or leave, he sneered. If you leave, there's no turning back. It'll mean divorce, got it? I stared at him, completely drained. I'll leave. I don't need any of the furniture or appliances I paid for. You can keep them, I replied, my voice flat. I wanted to throw their words back in their faces. After all, thanks to me, they were living in this luxurious 4-bedroom condo. As I began to fill out the divorce papers online, my mother-in-law watched with a smug grin, clearly happy to see me go. She sneered. You won't need to worry about this place. We'll be just fine without you. I kept my composure, focusing on the task at hand. Nathan stood beside her, wearing the same smug expression. He handed me the divorce papers. Here, just sign it, he said nonchalantly. No alimony, no property division. You can leave. I was worried you might try to claim this place, but looks like I was wrong. I looked him dead in the eyes. I don't want this apartment. It never meant anything to me. As I packed my things quietly, I made sure to empty our joint accounts. Some might judge me for it, but every penny had been earned by my hard work. When I arrived at my mother's house, she was visibly worried. I've been trying to reach you, but you weren't answering. I even went to your condo, but they wouldn't let me in. Are you okay? What do you mean? I asked, confused. She frowned. I called several times, but the calls wouldn't go through. I checked my phone and saw that her number had been blocked. I can't believe this. They actually blocked your number, I exclaimed, my shock evident. Then I explained everything that had happened, detailing how they tried to isolate me and control my life. My mother, usually the picture of calm and patience, clenched her fists in anger. That's unbelievable. How could they? But without you, they won't last long in that high-rise condo. Let them deal with their own mess. The next day, I submitted the divorce papers without any resistance. The marriage ended just as swiftly as it had begun. Returning to my mother's house gave me the peace I had been yearning for, and soon I was able to refocus on my work. With my income steadily increasing again, I began to find a rhythm in my life. Then, as I expected, a call came in from Nathan. Esther, it's me, I need your help. His voice was desperate. I'm busy right now, I replied, coldly, not interested in hearing more. We're behind on the mortgage and utility bills, he continued, his tone pleading. I had to sell the car, pawn my watch, but it's still not enough. His desperation was clear, but it didn't move me. I'd had enough. That's unfortunate, I said flatly. If we were still married, maybe I would feel obligated to help, but we're not, and I'm not generous enough to lend money to a stranger. Sorry. Please, Esther, he begged, his voice breaking. You're the only one I can turn to. Isn't your mother right there? I replied, my patience thinning. Ask her for help. Before I could end the call, his mother snatched the phone from him. Esther, you're being heartless, she shouted. We're in trouble, can't you help? You won't gain anything by holding a grudge. I had enough. That money was mine. You have no right to ask anything from me after you kicked me out. Keep this up, and I'll send you a bill for all the living expenses I covered when I was there, I said, my voice sharp with anger. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. Finally, Nathan's mother stammered. Wait, don't do that. We're just in a tough spot. Please don't make this worse for us. We won't bother you again, I swear. Is that okay? I let out a heavy sigh, my anger subsiding. Fine, but if you contact me again, I'll follow through. Understood? Understood, she muttered quickly. We're sorry. We won't bother you again. The line went dead. I blocked their numbers immediately and felt a sense of relief wash over me. I wouldn't have to deal with them again. A few weeks later, my mother told me she saw Nathan and his mother packing up and leaving the high-rise condo. They looked miserable, she said, not at all like the people they used to be. I wasn't surprised. Without my income, they couldn't afford the mortgage or utility bills. They were still struggling to repay their debts, and the house hadn't been sold yet. It seemed like a fitting consequence. Nathan had worked at a jewelry shop, but his pay was minimal. He must have finally realized that the high-rise and the lifestyle he wanted were only possible because of me, but by then, it was far too late for any regret. As for me, I was starting fresh. I focused on spending peaceful moments with my mother, living comfortably in my childhood home for now, but I had plans to move us into a new house, a luxury, barrier-free home where we could both thrive. It was the least I could do for the woman who had always been there for me. Esther, you've always been great at your job. Keep up the good work, my mother said, her words a balm for my weary soul. I'll always be here to support you. Her love and support gave me the strength to keep going. From this point on, I would work hard, not just for myself, but for her, too.